Hey, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll be right back with today's guest, but we want to give a shout out to our partners, the Florida Coaches Coalition, Vital Signs Wall of Fame, the global community of women in high school sports, and We Coach. You've heard me say before, these are four great organizations. You should add them to your network. And now don't hit that fast forward button. Stay with us for the next 4 minutes as we give a shout out to our sponsors. These are all great companies that you should have working for you as well. So here we go. We want to say thanks to Home Campus for their support of the podcast. Home Campus is the exclusive high school and state association management platform for the Educational AD podcast. And Home Campus is also your one-stop platform for scheduling, for student athlete clearance, for state association connections, and so much more. As an athletic director, I used Home Campus every single day at our school, and it was just fantastic. And the Home Campus team was fantastic too. To get started and find out all the things that Home Campus can do for you and your school, go to home-campus.com. That's home-campus.com. Check them out today. We also want to say thanks to Huddle. Go to huddle.com and change the way you see the game. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure our school was a Huddle school. And our coaches just loved the tools that Huddle provided that helped them coach our kids better. At Huddle, we believe in sports and teams believe in Huddle. Join the 6 million users. Turn your school into a Huddle school. We also want to thank Snap Mobile. Go to snapraise.com. That's snapraise.com. Check out their entire platform, including Snap Connect, Snap Manage, Snap Store, and of course, Snap Raise, the fundraising platform. We used it at our school with great success, and so can you. They even have a program where you can get your funding before you actually start your fundraiser. I don't think anyone else offers that. You can find it all at snapraise.com. We want to say thanks to Gipper. Go to Gipper.com and see how ADs are creating world-class content for their school's social media channel. Kids today are on social media, and if you're not updating your social media site, you're really missing out on a great opportunity, and Gipper can show you how to do it. Go to Gipper.com, mention you heard about it on the podcast, and you'll get a nice discount. That's Gipper.com. We want to say thanks to Wall of Fame by Vital Signs. You know, they're on a mission to bring your school's legacy to life. The Wall of Fame is actually an interactive touchscreen video console that is a great way to display your school records or your Hall of Fame, or simply tell more compelling stories to better engage your audience. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com, check out their great products, and when you're ready to buy, use the link vitalsignswalloffame.com/Jake, and you'll get a nice discount from them. Vital Signs Wall of Fame. Bring your school's legacy to life. We also want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. Go to hometownticketing.com. They're going to show you how to sell your tickets online. They're going to show you how to scan the people that come to your events, not just athletic events, but things like plays, concerts, dances, even graduation. And here's the cool part. Every step of the way, you're going to have a dedicated client success manager that's providing you hands-on support. That's every step of the way. You can find it all at hometownticketing.com. We also want to say thanks to District 1, that's WON, uniforms. Go to district1.com and you're going to find that they can offer you fully custom premium uniforms with on-time delivery in 20 business days or less. You also have the option to order one at a time replacements. So you'll never need to order a full set of uniforms when you need to just replace one or two. Stop dealing with late deliveries and go to District 1, that's WON.com. You're going to feel like you've won. Click the Team Gear button and get your free quote. That's district1.com. We want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com today and schedule a live web demo. See their tables and their boards in action. Their products not only generate income for your department, but they also create the ultimate game day experience for your student athletes. Go to sidelineinteractive.com for more information. And we want to thank Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. Athletic surveys are a quick, easy, and affordable way for you to collect comprehensive data that allows you to evaluate and improve your entire program. Athletic directors usually only hear from the complainers, the 2% that want to gripe about everything. Athletic surveys not only connects you with the 2%, but also the 98% that love and support your program. And that's a tremendously valuable tool to have when you're visiting with a complaining parent, a school board member, or your boss. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey to help you take the pulse of your parents and your student athletes. That's athleticsurveys.com. Check them out today. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. Regular listeners know that most of our audience is high school ADs, but every once in a while we have a back to college episode, and today is one of them. We're going all the way out to California and the University of California, Santa Cruz, and visit with their athletic director, Courtnie Prather. Courtnie's got a great background in athletics, and we're excited to hear what's going on in her neck of the woods. But first of all, Courtnie, welcome to the Educational AD Podcast.
Thank you, Jake. I'm very honored to have an opportunity to sit with you and chat and share my story, and hope that maybe it'll be inspirational. If nothing else, somebody out there listening can identify and relate to the same challenges, struggles, as well as the wins that happen within our work. And as I continue to learn and grow from those who shared their story previously. So thank you again for giving me the opportunity.
Oh, no, absolutely. We're honored to have you on the program. For listeners, we're recording this episode on May 30th. So you're going to be listening to it very quickly in our rotation. But let's go and jump right in. Courtnie, we always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So give us that bio, where you were born, where you grew up, maybe take us up through your own college days. Then we'll take a quick break and hear more about your career. But what's the Courtnie Prather origin story?
Well, I tell you, Jake, it's interesting. It's about as non-traditional as you can get. I was born in Atlanta. My father was a military veteran. He served in the Air Force, so we moved around quite a bit. Went to 5 different elementary schools, 3 middle schools, and 2 high schools. So I've traveled quite a bit. So I was born in Atlanta, but we moved to London, England, when I was really young, till about 5 years old. And then we made our way back to San Antonio, where my dad finished out his enlistment there. Afterwards, he moved and stayed into construction work, working with the same group that built the new SeaWorld in San Antonio. So that kept us at home. That's where I went to elementary and middle school and high school. And then pretty early on, my dad could recognize that I was going to be an athlete. I'm the only girl of 4 brothers. So I grew up pretty tough, hanging out, playing ball in the streets and around the neighborhoods. And my dad identified pretty early that I had a good gift. So every evening, every weekend, when he had some time off, we spent some time working on my skill set in soccer and in softball. Typically in our family, we tended to be more basketball and track heavy. We knew pretty early that I was going to need some type of scholarship in order to make my way into college. That was a goal that my dad had set for us pretty early. And so we kept working on, besides making sure that I took care of my academics, there wasn't a day that we weren't outside kicking a ball around or throwing something around in our family. So I grew up playing, club soccer, eventually in a recreational capacity. And this is back in the day where you would get an invitation in the mail. Somebody would scout you and say, hey, we really want you to come out and try out for this competitive league. So I got the opportunity at 13 years old to try out for the local club there. and got my first opportunity. Very lucky that they had scholarship opportunities for disenfranchised folks that maybe could use that financial assistance. And so I earned a scholarship to play both club soccer at the competitive level as well as softball. And so I fell in love with those two sports pretty early. I was pretty good at it and just kept working at it. I played high school as well, but then continued to grow and play at the highest level. Got selected for the Texas Olympic Development Program team, and got an opportunity to play for the state of Texas, as well as an opportunity to go and play and participate at the regionals as well. So all the while, soccer and softball were always, in the back of my mind. And then, I had some challenges, probably right around my junior year in high school, had some struggles, both personally and academically. And I really needed to get away from the sport and focus in on my academics. And so that was really at a prime time where you can, where lots of college scouts are looking for you. And so I missed that window a little bit. And just needed an opportunity to really kind of set myself straight and really focus on my academics. So instead of going off to college, I recognized that I needed to take a little bit more time to focus on myself. And being in San Antonio and having an Air Force veteran as a father, my grandfather was an Army veteran, all of my uncles served in the military. I thought that was the next best step for me, was to go off into the military and take some time to really, become more disciplined, become, really that adult that I needed to be in order to matriculate through college, because that's another set of challenges that I just didn't necessarily have the skill sets for at the time. So at 18 years old, I signed up for the Air Force, which is right there in San Antonio, went through basic training, and for our tech school, which is the schooling that you take for the job that you're going to be assigned to. My tech school was also in San Antonio. So it was a really good transition for me. I wasn't too far from home, but it felt like a world away. And so after I finished through my tech school, my first duty station was there in Little Rock, Arkansas, called Little Rock Air Force Base, right outside of Little Rock in Jacksonville. Started my career as an airman. But I always had the itch to keep playing sports. And at the time, back in the mid 90s and late 90s, they had some enlisted programs that if you did well on your base team, you could try out for a armed forces wide team. So I got the opportunity to play soccer for the Air Force, for an enlisted team, and traveled a little bit. And then, unfortunately, that was during a time right after the Persian Gulf. And so we had a little bit of a downsizing in activities. And so that program went away temporarily. And my youth and my naiveness pushed me to keep looking for opportunities to play. So I called up the local college, which is University of Arkansas Little Rock, let them know my story, said I'd be interested in continuing to play. They needed a goalkeeper at the time, so it worked out. So I went back to, my supervisors back on base and said, hey, I've got this great opportunity to go back to college, play on a college team, but I have to be a full-time student there. And they saw a really great opportunity for, to have an Air Force presence on a campus. And a chance to really show that, a career in the Air Force would be beneficial. So that kind of served as a liaison for recruiting as well while I continued to play. So I played for 2 years, did really great. As I can, I would basically work all day, 6 a.m. to 3 p.m., drive an hour and a half to get to campus, go to practice, and then go to night school every night. And that was my story for 2 years. But then as I continued to gain rank in the Air Force, it just became a little bit very difficult for me to maintain both responsibilities. So after my sophomore year at Euler, I left the program, continued my career as an airman. And then after my 4 years was up, got out, went back home to Texas, and spent some time just really picking up some odd jobs. Didn't really necessarily know where I wanted to go. I worked at a gym called the Valley Ranch Gym, which is where the Cowboys trained at. So I was always staying around professional athletes and working out and working as a professional trainer. Still played semi-pro soccer, and at a tournament. Just happened to be at a tournament in New Orleans, Louisiana, and I met this coach from he was a Welsh coach. He was a coach for the Welsh national team, the U17s, but also worked at a little small university in Mississippi. And he approached me and said, "Hey, I think you'd be great. We'd love to have you." And at the time I was 28 and I didn't think I had any eligibility left. And I said, "Well, I'm too old to come back to college." And he said, "Well, actually, we can bring you back. You've got 2 years and the rules haven't changed yet. So this will be your last opportunity to try to come back if you want to come back." And prayed about it, talked with my family, knew it was an opportunity for me to go back and finish my college career, to get that degree that I needed, and packed all my stuff up, told my friends goodbye, threw everything I had in a little Honda Accord, 1989 Honda Accord, and drove to a little small town called Hattiesburg, Mississippi, to go to William Carey University. And there I had a really great coaches. At the time, the men's and women's team were both coached by one coach named Nigel Bolton. He had an assistant coach that was also part of the Irish national team coach for the U15s. And so it was a little hidden gem where students coming from all over the world, particularly overseas, had a chance to play. So I played, coached on the men's side, finished my undergrad, finished grad school, and really the rest is history. I went on to start coaching at Southern, and now I'm here.
Wow, what an incredible journey. And I want to follow up with a couple of things that you mentioned, but we're going to take a quick break and then we'll come back. For our listeners, our guest today is Courtnie Prather. She is the Director of Athletics at UC Santa Cruz in California. We're going to take our first break, but we're coming back with more. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank Home Campus for their support of the podcast. Home Campus is the exclusive high school and state association information management platform for the Educational AD Podcast. And Home Campus is also your one-stop platform for things like scheduling, student athlete eligibility and clearance, state association connections, and a lot more. As a high school AD, I used Home Campus every single day at my school, and it was just fantastic. And the Home Campus team was fantastic to work with as well. If you want to find out more about all the things that Home Campus can do for you and your program, go to home-campus.com and get signed up. That's home-campus.com. Check them out today. We also want to say thanks to Huddle. Go to huddle.com and change the way you see the game. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure our school was a Huddle school. And our coaches just loved the tools, the smart cameras, everything that Huddle provided us to help them coach our kids better. At Huddle, we believe in sports and teams believe in Huddle. Join the 6 million users and turn your school into a Huddle school. Hey, welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest today is the Interim Athletic Director at UC Santa Cruz, Courtnie Prather. Courtnie, you were sharing with our listeners, incredible story, but you were working full-time in the Air Force, also playing collegiately and practicing, and being a full-time student. Having juggled all of those successfully at the same time, what kind of message do you share with the student athletes at UC Santa Cruz who are, I'll say, just going to school and doing sports?
Yeah, I mean, I really have to take it back to, something my dad always taught me was to keep it simple. You have the things that you're really passionate about and that you love to do, that you're committed to, and then you have the world that comes in and starts pulling at you from all different angles. Your friends, your family want to spend time with you. You always feel like there's something out there that you want to try or experience. And you have to ask yourself, is it in alignment with where I'm trying to go? And you have to be prepared to make the big sacrifices. I go back to, a story even from some books I've read, and it talks about something as simple as a cake, right? I use this story a lot with my students. Hey, who likes to eat cake? Everybody raises their hand. They raise their hand, and ask, what's the favorite part? What's your favorite part about the cake? And it's the icing, right? And so most people, like 9 times out of 10, people are going to say it's the icing. And I ask, well, what part do you eat first? And everybody says they go right for the icing. I want that immediate response. I know what I like and I go for it. And I asked them, raise their hand, well, who would try to eat the cake batter first, right? Or just the breading part of the cake. And not many people will do that because they want to go straight to the part that makes them the most happiest. And basically I say, this is what life is about. You have to do the things that you don't want to do first. You have to make sure that you take care of all the things that really don't seem like they're, as familiar, that give you that instant gratification. You have to hold off on that instant gratification as long as you can. And that way the payoff will be exactly what it is, what you expect it to be. I think too many of us, especially now and, in our current, society, is instant gratification matters. You've got that response with social media, using something as simple as using your microwave or your computer and shooting off an email. We can communicate and get what we want as fast as we desire it. The unfortunate thing is when you're starting off and you're building your brand, you are building your fitness level, you are building your professional knowledge. You can't just plug in and get it instantly. You have to be prepared and willing to do the things that you don't want. You've got to eat the bread of the cake before you can experience the icing. And that was just something that I always knew that I had to be willing to give up what I thought I was missing out on so I could have what I truly wanted to. And what was even better is that I did get to taste that icing, right? By sacrificing everything that I thought was important to me, all it did was, give me the opportunity to accomplish exactly what I wanted to. And then what it actually did is it provided a lot of space and opportunity for me to go back and do the things that I thought I'd missed out on, right? But I was in a much better place to navigate it all. And so that it's the same things that I had to do when I was there. I focused on sleep, a great diet, making sure I studied every night. I had to make sure that I was very structured with my time. And I had to be prepared to say no so I could say yes to the things that mattered most.
Yeah, great lesson. I love the analogy there with the cake and the icing. It's true. We do always go for the icing. Very quickly, take us through, the journey that has now led you to UC Santa Cruz, the path of becoming an athletic director. How did that all play out?
Really, I was coaching. So after I finished my undergrad and graduate school, I was a Division I coach at Southern University, largest land grant HBCU in Louisiana, Baton Rouge. And part of the work that I did besides, coaching the X's and O's, I thought it was really important that our student athletes, gave back and were invested into their local communities that they served. So we developed a outreach program for elementary and middle schools that it was student-led and student-ran, and it really caught some fire, and it caught the eye of an old AD there at LSU, Skip Bertman, famous baseball coach. He's got a street named after him right downtown Baton Rouge, and it caught the eye of Skip Bertman. He was doing some philanthropic work with the students over at LSU, and he picked up a phone and called me. I don't know. I still to this day don't know how he got my number, and reached out and asked if I would be willing to bring the type of program that we were doing at Southern, and see if we can work with some of the student athletes at LSU, and let's see if we can broaden it out and not just work with soccer teams, but if we can make it athletic, across the entire athletic department. So Skip and I worked on a couple of philanthropic opportunities where we reached out and really had major, community impact, and it was just an exciting time for us. And at some point he turned and looked at me and said, you have something special, and even though you're a great coach, I think you can really make an impact across a broader community if you moved into administration. And to hear that from Skip, who's just well known, well respected across the industry, that really made an impact to me, and I really started to consider that. So I went home that Christmas and talked with my father about what I really want to do now, and how I would like to use the game of not only soccer but really sport altogether to really attack some social issues that we see every day. And I made the jump. There was an opportunity at Loyola University in New Orleans that came up, and I called Skip and wanted to hear from him on his opinion and his perspective. And he really did counsel me very well. And that gave me the courage to go out and take that leap of faith and leave the coaching industry and move into administration. And the biggest things he shared with me is that you're always a coach. You just got to change your perspective. You're coaching people now. It's not just, student athletes, you're coaching everybody. And once I was able to really wrap my head around that helped. So we did some really great things at Loyola. I came in as as an assistant of operations, really handling the day-to-day game operations, working with our recreation, running the entire facility for memberships. And, in that time, I always get a bug, and I always have some little hair that says there's something else we can do. We can do more with this. And what we realized is that, Loyola had a lot of different iterations of their athletic department because of, for about almost 30 years, they didn't have athletics. Then when we brought athletics back, unfortunately, we had Katrina, which had a big impact to the community of New Orleans. And so we lost athletics there for several years. And when I got there, in 2016, that's when they were, kind of really getting their footing again and bringing athletics back. But one thing we didn't have is we hadn't had a homecoming in over almost 60 years, because we just really hadn't built a sustainable relationship through athletics. So the one thing I knew I wanted to do was to really hopefully build a coalition of people that really understood the value of college athletics on campus and how it can really increase a sense of belonging for all students. And through that work and through that outreach, before I left in 2018, I left in 2019, but in 2018, we built enough of a coalition that the students initiated that they wanted to bring back homecoming and bring it back in a sustainable way. So we brought back homecoming in 2018. It's still going now. And it's, again, a partnership across a collaborative partnership across the entire campus where everybody's bought in and really understands it. Through that work, right across the street is Tulane, and the deputy AD there, Monica LeBron at the time, she's actually from right up the street here, from Campbell, which is probably about 20 miles away from Santa Cruz. And she said, once again, you've done a great job, and I think you can do something bigger now. You should really take a look at UC Santa Cruz, and if they have an opening, go for it. So I kept my eye on it for about a year, and sure enough, position opened up. It was right in my wheelhouse, internal operations, working with students on the front line, as well as serving as the senior woman administrator. And in that capacity, I can continue to work on some social issues regarding Title IX and Title IX, not only equity, but dealing with sexual harassment and sexual violence training. And there was a need there. So I'm the first senior woman administrator here at the university. And, it was meant to be. And then with my background in adventure-based counseling, when you're here on this wonderful topography known as Santa Cruz, where you've got the bay to the south, You've got the campus, which is about 10 minutes away. And then within 10-minute walk, you're right in the middle of some of the most beautiful natural forests that we have. I can definitely see the relationship, not only between college athletics, but even on the recreation side, and how we can really make an impact on students, their experience through their matriculation.
Again, just an incredible journey. And I love how you've been able to kind of leave your mark, your footprint at the institutions you've been at. We're going to take another break, but our guest today is Courtnie Prather. She's currently the interim director of athletics at the University of California, Santa Cruz. We're going to take that break, but we're coming back with some more. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thank you to Snap Mobile for their support. If you go to snapraise.com, that's snapraise.com, you're going to find an entire suite of platforms designed to help you do your job better. You've got Snap Store, Snap Connect, Snap Manage, and of course, there's Snap Raise, their fundraising platform. We used it at our school with tremendous success, and so can you. They even have a program where you can get your funding before you actually start your fundraiser. I don't think anybody else offers that. Go to snapraise.com. Check out that entire suite, snapraise.com. We also want to say thanks to Gipper. Go to Gipper.com. See how athletic directors are creating world-class marketing content for their school's social media channels. Students today are on social media, and if you are not promoting your teams, your students, your coaches, and even your program, you're really missing out. Go to Gipper.com. Mention the podcast, and you're going to get a nice discount. They're going to help you create custom content for your school's social media channel. That's Gipper.com. Hey, welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Courtnie, one of my favorite segments is when we have guests share some of the mentors that they've had in their career. None of us get to where we're at on our own. You've acknowledged some of your mentors along the way, but who are some of the people that have helped you get to where you're at today?
Yeah, certainly. Thanks for asking. I mean, first and foremost is my father. He's one of the strongest people that I know as a single father, raising his, 5 kids. And putting, I just got to see somebody really put a good, strong work ethic, and integrity was always just a staple of who he was. And that's been very helpful and helping me strive for who I want to be. Nigel Bolton and Danny Owens, these were my coaches when I was at William Carey. They gave me my first opportunities, and they really always championing for me. They made sure that they were quick to let me know when I needed to, grow up and do what I needed to do. And at the same time, they always gave a lot of space and grace for me to grow as a person. And I'm just very grateful for the opportunities there. Coach John Knighton, who was the head coach at Southern University and really plucked me out of the NAIA and brought me to the Division I opportunity. He is known as the godfather of soccer in Baton Rouge. He was the first man to integrate soccer there, and his, coaching prowess, as well as his philanthropic work and who he's known as in the state of Louisiana. I couldn't have learned any from a better person about how to just be the best person that I could be. And then just a couple other people, Dr. Broussard, who was the AD at Southern. He really supported us. It's amazing when you have great leadership that supports you and believe in what you want to do. I'm just very, again, grateful for a lot of opportunity. And then there's about 3 people. Corliss Fingers, who is the strength and conditioning coach at Bethune-Cookman. She was our strength and conditioning coach at Southern. One-woman show, coaching football as well as all the other sports. When you want to talk about somebody who can sacrifice and be a strong administrator so you can run a big shop, she showed me how to do that. Brett Simpson, who's the AD at Loyola. Sissy Petty, who was the she oversaw our student affairs there at Loyola. They really believed in my vision, and they gave me a lot of space to really go out and do what I needed to do to build relationships across campus, to bring back our homecoming. And then Monica LeBron, who's now at Tennessee, who was at Tulane and Wendy Windsor, who is now the president of NERSA, but also oversees as the director of recreation there at Tulane. These are very strong women of color that have really paved the way for a lot of us going forward. And I'm just grateful to not only call them colleagues and mentors, but friends as well.
Well, I always love to hear the stories and the different people and the way they've impacted, each person's life. Can you think back to a time where, at the time, again, you didn't understand it, didn't appreciate it, but maybe one of those mentors, was giving you a lesson that is played out now in your role as an AD?
Yeah, I'd have to say Coach Corliss Fingers, who's now at Bethune-Cookman. She's about the realest person you'll ever meet. She's a 5'2", spunky, it surprises you what she can do. But one day I was probably complaining a little bit too much about what our soccer team was not getting enough attention. And just like a lot of coaches, we can be a little tunnel vision and only look at, our perspective. And I was just on her. Hey, we need this. We need this. This is going to help us get to postseason. And, it was all about we, which was really I, and she just stopped me in my tracks and said, get over yourself. And it was the hardest conversation. At the time, it hit me like a ton of bricks. She knows this. We laugh about it now, but I was mad at her for about 5 days. I didn't even want to look at her, let alone speak to her. But she was right. I was only looking at it through my lens, through my perspective. It was about my team. And I was very selfish and self-centered. I did not recognize, what everybody was trying to do the same thing. Everybody's trying to support their students. Everybody wants to compete at the highest level that they can. And we're all fighting over the same resources. And it really, what it did is not only just kind of made me think about others, but it made me a better coach, because I started to really look at all of the colleagues across the entire department and saw them as mentors and opportunities for professional development, as opposed to somebody that I was competing with for time or for resources. And once I did that, what it did is it made us all stronger. We were able to work together and pull our resources together so we could work smarter and not harder. And so that was actually one of the biggest lessons that I've ever learned. And I have to thank Corliss for just being real and calling it out.
Boy, you're lucky you only had one of those experiences. I had a couple of those experiences as a coach, as an AD, and it's just so easy to do. But again, the upswing of that is when you have a staff and the coaches are not in their silos and it's not me, and they see themselves as part of a team. That's when you can really accomplish some great things, both as individual teams and as an athletic department. Great stuff. Appreciate you sharing that. We're going to take another quick break. Once again, our guest today is Courtnie Prather. She's the Interim Director of Athletics at the University of California in Santa Cruz. Please stay with us. We're coming back with some more. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Vital Signs Wall of Fame. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. Check out their great products and let them help you bring your school's legacy to life. The Wall of Fame is actually an interactive touchscreen video console that's going to highlight your school's best performances, both past and present, in athletics, academics, and the arts. It also is going to allow you to tell more compelling stories to share with your stakeholders. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. Check out their great products. And when you're ready to order, use the link vitalsignswalloffame.com/Jake, and they're going to give you a nice little discount. Bring your school's legacy to life. vitalsignswalloffame.com. We also want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. You go to hometownticketing.com. They're going to show you how to set up and sell your tickets online, not just for athletic events, but things like concerts, school plays, dances, even graduation. And here's the best part. Every step of the way, Hometown's going to provide you with a dedicated client success manager that provides hands-on support. That's every step of the way. You can get started by going to hometownticketing.com. Simple and easy online ticketing. Check them out today. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Courtnie, one of the things that we like to try and do with the podcast is this idea of sharing best practices. So I'm going to put you on the spot. What are some things that you have done at your schools, or maybe you've seen at other schools, that you would classify as a best practice? Anything come to mind?
Yeah, I think there's a couple. Probably one of the first things, I think it's really easy, and a lot of us do this in our profession, is assessments. I think taking the time to do an assessment, to really have an understanding of, where your people is what your department doing in line with the values of the university, right? So we like to take the opportunity to make sure that, whatever our charge, our mission, our vision is for the university, that we are doing the work, and that the students and the student athletes actually feel the connection between their either their academics or what they're doing as an athlete. Is it in line with the mission and value of the institution? And the best way to find that out is really to do an assessment with your department. We try to make sure we develop assessments that are very specific for each individual team, as well as the staff members. So if you're an entry level or a senior staff or a student staff worker, right, they all have different experiences and different responsibilities in contributing to the mission and vision of the institution, as well as the department. So the best way for us to make sure that we're in alignment with that is taking stock and doing an assessment, sending out surveys, either at the end of the season or at the end of a quarter or a semester. Really take stock on that information. And do an executive summary in which we can really evaluate, are we in alignment with what we say we are, and what we're doing. I think that's really been very powerful for us, as well as it gives us a really a good solid foundation that as you continue to implement new programs, and advocate, if you need to advocate for additional resources, you have the statistical data that backs up, that helps you strategize going forward. So I always like to start there, because I like all decisions to be as informed as possible. I think the other thing is to continue to invest in DEI initiatives, right? As our community and society continues to evolve, I think it's really important to make sure that we are constantly assessing ourselves and making sure that we are offering or and ensuring that we are breaking down any type of barriers to marginalized folks to have access to whether it's health and wellness opportunities within the recreation side, or access to resources as a student athlete, whether it be equitable representation at the coaching level, as well as just making sure that they have equitable access to all the same resources across all sports, for travel, for meals, for uniforms. So I think it's really important that, that we continue to invest in DEI initiatives and make sure that we are, again, breaking down all the barriers that prevent access for all folks that want to be involved.
Yeah, again, I can't thank you enough for sharing those thoughts. My wife's career coach and educator, she was a Title IX pioneer, running on the boys cross country team when she was in high school, till she beat them all. And the coach said, "Okay, I guess you can have your own team." Got two daughters that, again, they're grown now, but they had a great opportunity in sports. But it's just so important that, and not just gender, but all levels of diversity, equity, inclusion. It's just so important. Really appreciate you sharing that. Courtnie, if one of our listeners, we'll do this at the end of the show, but if one of our listeners wanted to reach out and pick your brain a little bit more on DEI or anything about athletics, what's the best way that they can get a hold of you?
Best way would be email. You can reach me at cprather@ucsc.edu. So that's my first initial C, my last name Prather, Prather, @ucsc.edu. That'd be the best way to get in touch with me.
Okay. Well, listeners, I think you got a great resource here, so take advantage of that. Our guest is Courtnie Prather. She's the interim director of athletics at the University of California, Santa Cruz. We're coming back with some more, so please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to District One. That's districtwon.com. Go to district1.com for a better uniform experience. You're going to find that District One offers you fully custom premium level uniforms with on-time delivery in 20 business days or less. And get this, you can order one at a time replacements. So you're never going to have to order a full set of uniforms when you only need to order one or two sets. Stop dealing with late deliveries and go to district1.com. That's WON. And you're going to feel like you've won. Click the Team Gear button for your free quote at district1.com. We also want to thank our good friends at Sideline Interactive, indoor scoring tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and schedule a live web demo to see their tables and their boards in action. Their products not only generate income for your athletic department, but they also create the ultimate game day experience for your student athletes. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor scoring table. It's just fantastic. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Schedule that live web demo today. That's sidelineinteractive.com. Welcome back to the Educational AD Podcast. Courtnie, one of our long-standing talking points, I ask athletic directors, how can we do a better job of being socially aware for our community? And I realize that's a big umbrella, but do you have any advice for us?
Yeah, I think, the first thing is we can't armchair quarterback this, right? And you also cannot, as much as we can learn from, reading and getting informed about historical factors or what are common practices. I think one of the best things that you can do is get out and be amongst the people. What I've done in every institution that I've been at is, as soon as I, get on campus, I'm intentionally looking out on who are the big movers and shakers on campus. What are the programs and departments on campus that have a pretty broad reach or a large intersecting reach? So, if we're looking for somebody who works predominantly with African American students, I'm also still looking for groups that work with our Women's Resource Center, because I can, if I can go out and work intentionally and specifically with women identified folks, I know where there's going to be intersecting identities of ethnic, racial, or cultural backgrounds, right? So what I really do is try to be very intentional and strategic with the outreach on campus, whether it's working with people in the student union affairs, again, Women's Resource Center, the DEI, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion offices on campus, working with folks from our Veteran Affairs programs, folks for our transfer students and graduate students, right? Really being intentional and finding those offices and those staff members that have a wide range of intersecting identities where you can really have your hand and do outreach to, a much larger constituency. By spending time and really keep being quiet. I think a lot of us tend to, in our coaching and athletics world, we are type A personalities. We like to win. We like to get to the answer, find the solution. And in this aspect, I think it's really important that we introduce ourselves, and we step into that space with a lot of humility, and we're quiet. We listen. We really put in our active listening hats and get a true understanding of, what are what's those departments, what are they trying to do? What's the impact across campus? What are their challenges, right? And then really just make yourself available as a tool or a resource to help get to where they want to go. So I've always kind of walked into this kind of servant leader type of approach where I'm not telling you what I'm here to do or what I can do. All I want to do is introduce myself, hear more about what you're doing in your space, and how can you use our department to help meet those goals, and make sure that we can, earmark either some dollars or time, or find, other staff members that are willing to participate and help out. I think that by getting in on the ground floor and meeting those constituencies across campus, you'll be able to get your thumb on the pulse of what's really happening on campus, what means the most to those students at the time. These students come in and out every 4 to 6 years, right? And so we're always changing and adapting, and we should really have our finger on the pulse of what matters to them most now. And in order for you to be the best director, best leader, best supervisor, best manager of people, you really have to have a really good sense of what's important to them now. And the only way you do that is get out from behind your desk, be humble, show up in spaces with humility, listen a ton, and make yourself available to be of service to them.
You hit several things right on the head. I just love it. Get out, meet people, talk with them, but you came back with that all important listen, which is one of the skills that I did not learn early enough in my career. When I finally did, it was just so much easier, and I was a much better leader when I finally learned to listen. And I love the point you made earlier. It's got to be intentional. Okay. These things aren't going to happen by accident and wishing and hoping, as we say. Great stuff. Thanks for sharing. Courtnie, this has been really cool spending some time with you and finding out a little bit about you and UC Santa Cruz, but we're not done yet. We always wrap up with the athletic director's toolbox. And you've certainly shown our listeners that you know your way around the world of athletics. But we're going to take our final break, hear from Athletic Surveys, who sponsor this segment. When we come back, we're going to find out what Courtnie Prather is going to put into her new athletic director toolbox. So please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank Athletic Surveys for their support of the podcast. Athletic Surveys are a quick, easy, and affordable way for you to collect comprehensive data that allows you to evaluate and improve your entire program. Athletic directors typically only hear back from the complainers, the 2% that want to gripe about everything. And Athletic Surveys is going to connect you with that 2%, but they're also going to connect you with the 98% that love and support your program. And that's a tremendously valuable tool to have when you're talking to that complaining parent or your principal or your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to show you how they can create a custom survey for your athletic department. It's going to help you take the pulse of your parents and your student athletes. So go to athleticsurveys.com. See what they can do for you and your program. Let them help you take your athletic program from good to great. Well, it's that time of the podcast. We've been visiting today with Courtnie Prather, the interim director of athletics at the University of California, Santa Cruz. Tremendous athletic background. You really need to add her to your network. But Courtnie, right now I'm going to task you with sending out a brand new athletic director, but I'm only going to let you put 3 things in their toolbox. So what 3 items are going to go into your new athletic director toolbox?
Well, this is a big one. So as a sitting in the interim chair, I think I can share something that's, a couple of thoughts that are very unique to this current situation, as well as ADs that are going into their first AD stint. I think the first thing is, for a lot of administrators who've come up through the ranks, we've been the frontline workers, and we're so used to kind of having our hands into everything, making sure we know everything that's going on day to day. I think the first thing you need to realize is that you have to resist the temptation to know and do everything while you sit in the chair. That's what you have great staff for. They can handle the day to day, and you've got to trust that their ability to do that work. But I think it is important that you set clear expectations on communication, so that way you can stay read in on what is happening on the day to day, and help. And so your staff can help you prepare for seeing what's around the corner before it actually happens. And just allow a lot of space for yourself to continue to grow. And you're there to teach and help staff continue to grow and and learn and develop. So resist the temptation to do everything and know everything yourself, and just know that you've got great staff members around you that will help you fill in the gaps. I think that another big thing is for new ADs is to understand that your work ethic and your reputation and all your skill sets that helped you get to where you are now, don't assume that that's going to carry you over in this new role as AD. Once you get into the director chair, you almost have to, you cannot assume that respect for your role will be automatically given because you have the actual title of AD. You got to know that you have to earn it. And anytime you move up in roles, it's almost like starting over again. So even if the same folks that report to you used to be your peers and are very knowledgeable about what you've done in your capacity prior to that role, you can't assume that all of that respect and understanding will come with you into the new role. So just be prepared to do the work to continue to earn the trust and respect of the staff members around you. And finally, most importantly, I think, we need to make sure that that you treat this like a business, like you are the COO, the CEO, and the CFO of the department. You have to get read in as quickly as you can to the departments and universities' financial situation and revenue streams that are available to you. I think that's really important because this is a business and you represent the university, and you have to show that you have the ability to manage the business of the operations in a positive manner, and definitely reflects the mission and values of the institution. As well as identify key internal and external stakeholders to connect with. Especially if you're coming from the outside into a new institution, we can't do this work alone. It does take a village to do this work, to support our student athletes and staff, as well as to make sure that, again, that we are in line with the mission and vision of the institution. And you will find that you will have some really great stakeholders who have been on campus for quite some time that can really help you navigate the different constituencies, not only on campus, but those that are off campus that continue to support the community that the university serves. So those would be my top three. Hopefully they'll be advantageous for those on the listeners to this podcast.
Oh, absolutely. Again, I love I love them all, but the idea of, okay, you got hired, in your resume and your interview, they may have got you the job, but what you do day to day, that's going to keep you on that job and allow you to grow and excel and have a great career. And very cool point. We don't hear, I don't think, enough about immersing yourself in the minutia of, policy manuals, financial plans, budgets, resources, things like that. Great stuff. Courtnie, one more time, if one of our listeners wants to reach out and add you to their network, and listeners, I think you should, what's the best way they can get a hold of you?
Best way would be via email at cprather at ucsc.edu. You can also find me at LinkedIn at Courtnie Prather. Very simple, really easy. So first name and last name, Courtnie with an IE, not an EY. And for your listeners, so COURTNIE, last name Prather, PRATHER. So by all means, you can shoot me an email directly, or you can find me on LinkedIn at any time.
Courtnie Prather, Interim Director of Athletics at the University of California, Santa Cruz. Thanks so much for sharing with our listeners today, and all the best moving forward.
Thanks, Jake. Appreciate your time. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to share my story.
Oh, absolutely. You were fantastic. For our listeners, we do this just about every single day, and we upload the Zoom recordings to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We appreciate you tuning in. Come back next time for more great information and more best practices on the Educational AD Podcast.